So first image, if you haven't managed to get to the beautician and you've got a little bit of stuff sprouting in places where it shouldn't be or where you don't want it to be, just take pity on this poor lady. It is a lady, it is not a man. And I'll let you absorb this. It's a lot to absorb. The shadowy figure behind her is her husband. But this is not a scene from the Golden Legend. This is not some random saint that I've dug up. This isn't some very strange image fantasy of the Virgin Mary or anything strange like that. No, sometimes truth is stranger than fiction. This is actually a portrait. Yes, it's a portrait. And yes, she has got a rather extraordinary beard. Now, this is a portrait that was painted in 1631 by a Spanish artist called Jose Giuseppe. I just completely made that name up. I don't know where that came from. There isn't even an artist, as far as I'm aware, called Jose Giuseppe. Cut that bit, cut. He's called Ribera. It's called Ribera, okay. 1631, and thanks to Ribera we actually know quite a lot about this lady, because you can see just down to the right hand side of the painting there's a sort of tablet. It almost looks like a tombstone. It's not a tombstone, it's a tablet with writing on it, and on this tablet, I'm going to keep saying it now. Ribera has told us all about the lady in the image that he's painted. So she is called Magdalena Ventura, and she comes from Azzurro in Italy. If you recognise that word and know anything about wine, Azzurro is where Montepulciano wine comes from. And I imagine that Magdalena, at the age of 37, would have wanted to have downed probably not one, not two, but maybe 3 or even 4 bottles of Montepulciano wine, because at the age of 37, this inscription tells us, she started to grow a beard, and that beard did not stop growing. So this is a portrait of Magdalena Ventura when she is 52 years old. And now I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, well, why didn't she cut her beard? That's what you're thinking, isn't it? Well, you might be thinking other things. Yes, she could have cut her beard, but I think maybe the other small issue is that she is 52 years old and she is suckling an infant, which wouldn't have been very likely, especially not with her, shall we call it, hormone imbalance. But also more disturbingly, in fact, possibly the most disturbing thing of this entire painting is that she seems to have only one single breast that is growing kind of almost sort of out of the base of her neck. It's rather high up. And rather prominent and rather disturbing. Now, as far as I'm aware, Magdalena had the misfortune of a beard, but she didn't have the misfortune of a single breast in the centre. So I think this is Ribera just demonstrating in the most obvious way that this is most certainly not a man, but she is, that's terrible, but she is 100% a woman. And he tells us that he has painted her in a very lifelike fashion. And so all of this, he's hilarious. He says, so he on this tablet he tells us, that she is Magdalena. She was 37 when she got the beard. She's now 52. Blah blah. And then he says, and this was all painted by the fantastic artist Ribera. He compares himself to Apelles. Now Apelles was known to have been one of the best artists of all time. He was an ancient Greek. He painted Alexander the Great. So that's an accolade indeed to compare yourself to Apelles, or it's not an accolade if you compare yourself maybe. And then he goes on to say, and this is a marvelously lifelike depiction of Magdalena. So there she is. The painting is absolutely fantastic. He also says in this inscription something I forgot, which is quite important because I think it tells us the way that people would view this. He also says that Magdalena was a wonder of nature. Which essentially in 17th century speak is sort of a euphemism for she's a complete freak, you need to have a look at this, which is not very nice at all. And I don't think that she was in fact a very happy lady, because just look at this detail, look at the way that he's painted her eye, and that just kind of, so you look at this painting, you're like, what? And then you're like, oh my God, and look at the beard, and then look at the breast, and then I think if you bother to look further, you look at the eye, and you can see that she's obviously also a very unhappy lady, and I find that really poignant, and I find that really moving, and I don't think people would have been particularly kind to her in the 17th century. What I wish she had met Conchita Wurst, because I think Magdalena and Conchita, kindred spirits. I think Conchita would have definitely livened her up and made her feel less strange. Obviously, coming at this bearded lady thing from a different perspective, Conchita. So, whilst we're on the subject of something a little bit maybe gender fluid, let's go to the next image I've got for you. You ready for this one? There we go. St. John the Baptist in drag. John the Baptist wearing a negligee. Doesn't he look gorgeous? And I think he knows he's looking gorgeous. He's like, look at me in my negligee. This painting is in Sintra in Portugal, and actually I can't tell you either who painted it or when exactly it was painted. I imagine it's probably 15th century, perhaps very early 16th century. I don't know the artist. If anybody does know the artist, then please feel free to let me know. I have done, obviously I have done a little bit of research, couldn't find it. But definitely know that this is John the Baptist, because he has a lamb. And the story is that when John the Baptist baptized Jesus, he said, "Behold, the Lamb of God." So there you go. Here's another attribute. If you see a saint in an image with a lamb, if it's not a female saint, if it's a female saint, that would be Agnes, Agneau, lamb in French, Agnes. If it's a male saint, it's John the Baptist, more than likely. And then this slinky little number that he's wearing is actually probably camel skin, because St. John the Baptist spent a lot of time in the wilderness and therefore had to make his own clothes. And this particular outfit is a very fetching piece of camel skin that does look a bit blue though, so I'm not entirely sure how he's got the blue colour. But so lamb and somebody wearing a strange outfit that looks like animal skin probably is animal skin, and that's probably John the Baptist. So there you go. That's just a fun one. It's extraordinary, isn't it, to our modern eyes, John the Baptist looking a little bit sultry. And I must say, I think the image is slightly squashed as well. There are very few good images of this painting, certainly that I've found. So there we are. Okay, final image. Here we go. Now, this is from a book of hours. So this dates to about, the Book of Hours dates to 1416. It's called the Très Riches Heures, and in fact, the book wasn't completed. It was created by 3 artists, the Limburg brothers, and all of them died of the plague in 1416, as indeed did their patron, who was a gentleman called Jean, the Duke of Berry. So this was created especially for the Duke of Berry, and a Book of Hours is an illuminated manuscript, so it has writing and images. But a Book of Hours was essentially a very posh prayer book, basically. Very expensive possessions back in the 15th century and earlier. So this is February. This is the February folio from the Book of Hours, and you're probably thinking, okay, what's so weird about that? Isn't, actually she's showing us a lovely scene. I mean, let's have a look at the right hand side of it. It's an agricultural scene. It's winter. This farm looks very well kept. Beautiful detail here. Look, there's sheep in a pen there. Little birds are eating grain. The beehives. You can see the 4 beehives on a little sort of table at the back, covered in snow. There's a peasant with a donkey. Everything is good with the world. Everyone is going about their business. It's all beautiful. It's all orderly. It's crisp white snow. What is so weird about that? And then you come to the other side. You're led in by this lady that you can see down in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen in this blue with the black hat. So that's basically the brightest colour and the most of the brightest colour. So your eye is drawn, and when you have a look, your eye is drawn to her and then into this house, which the Limburg brothers have very conveniently taken the front off so we can actually look in. And what do you see? You see 2 peasants with their clothes pulled up so that they are completely exposing their nether regions. What are they doing? Well, I was thinking, maybe they might be just practicing their flashing, just discreet flashing from when they're sitting opposite somebody. Oh, yes. Have a little look at this. Ha ha. In fact, they're not doing that at all. You may have guessed that. They are warming themselves by a fire. So you can see just in the left side, I hope, of the image, you can see that there's sort of orange flames flickering away. It looks a bit like a cardboard cutout, but that's what they're doing. They're warming themselves by the fire. Not quite in the same way that this lady is warming herself. The lady in the front is warming herself. Look, she's really demure. She is just lifting up her lovely blue dress just to warm her ankles, and she is sort of politely, perhaps, or in disgust, maybe, I don't know, looking away from these other 2 who are displaying no such nicety. There they are. So why have the Limburg brothers depicted these 2 peasants in this way, and in such marked contrast to this lady in the blue, who is also a peasant, but a better class of peasant? They're being mocked, basically. These 2, I was going to say 2 fellows, but I think you can see that they're not 2 men. It's a lady and a man. They're being mocked in the way that they are. Just look at them. They don't seem to be embarrassed. They're not showing shame. They're not. They're kind of very unconsciously exhibiting themselves like animals. So essentially what the Limburg brothers are doing is equating these people almost to the animals that they probably looked after, and sort of laughing at them as such. These are such a low class of people that they haven't even got the human attributes, which isn't very kind. But it kind of gets a bit worse, because Jean, the Duke of Berry, really wasn't a very kind person. In fact, and that's the person, if you recall, for whom this was made. He was a complete horror of a man, in the worst possible way. He was a collector, and he collected everything from jewels and gemstones to chateau. He had 12 castles, and to exotic animals, and basically to people. So this is an assertion of power. You know, these peasants aren't sentient human beings for the Duke of Berry. No, they're just possessions for his, maybe not his pleasure, but to ultimately give him pleasure, because they keep all his chateau and his lands around his chateau in good order. So this is the Duke of Berry. This is from January, so this is from the month. This is from the month before February, just in case you hadn't worked that one out. I'd say I'm full of it today, aren't I? Not a very nice person indeed. There's a story that once, he was obviously very close to the Limburg brothers, and he once gave the oldest Limburg brother a gift of a 9-year-old girl who was an heiress, who he'd asked her mother if she would be able to marry the Paul, his name was Paul de Limburg, and the mother had said no, and so he abducted her. He just took her. Her mother then, quite understandably, complained to the king, who was the Duke of Berry's brother. That was King Charles V of France, and he had to give her back. But the interesting thing is that Paul de Limburg did end up marrying this poor young girl. So Paul de Limburg maybe not very nice, but the Duke of Berry definitely not very nice. And these peasants treated as his possessions. So there we go. I'm going to turn on commenting. I'm going to take off images. Turn on commenting. Oh, look what I learnt to do, by the way. Look, if I press on that, look, I've got the Duke of Berry up there. Press on that. No, press on him. See, honestly, learning something new all the time, but I'm actually going to turn off images altogether. I am struggling to decide which is the weirdest out of all of those. Yeah, he was really a horrible bloke. He was really a horrible bloke. He was. Kind of luckily that he was so rich and liked nice things, otherwise we wouldn't get these fantastic books. So before the Très Riches Heures, the illuminated manuscript, there was one called the Très Belles Heures, the very beautiful Book of Hours, that was also illustrated by the Limburg brothers, that obviously was completed. So why didn't the First Lady cut her beard? I missed that. Oh, I don't think she thought of it. I don't know. I think maybe if they'd have had threading in the 17th century, she might have cut her beard. I don't know. It's also possible in the horrible way that they had in the 17th century and earlier, that she was a bit of a circus freak and was kind of known for it. I mean, obviously Ribera had to find her somehow, but no, for whatever reason she didn't cut her beard. Maybe it just grew so much that there was kind of no point, and she was like, well, you know what, 5 o'clock shadow or full beard, might as well go for the full beard and just be done with it. I don't know. So there we go. Stunned silence, I think, from everybody. I was like, whoa! Peasants showing their bits, a bearded lady, and St. John the Baptist in drag. What more do you want on a Thursday morning? So with that, I'm going to leave you, and I hope you have a great weekend. And she wanted to enter Eurovision. I think she might have done. I just wish that she'd met Conchita. I just think they would have had a great time together, and she would have felt so much better about herself, because it kills me that she has that tear in her eye, and she's so sad. Anyway, there we go. Off I go now. Definitely have a good weekend, and I will see you on Monday. Don't really know what I'm going to do yet. On Saturday, we've got the next and the final episode of Rousseau's Surprised. Final. It sounds like there's about 15, there's 2 of them. And more to come. So watch this space. See you soon. Bye.